The academics, right? The people that you mentioned, to include Jordan Peterson, etc. Because we've wanted to have Jordan Peterson on for a bit, right? His daughter came on, etc.
It's more likely you'll go on Chris Williamson.
Yeah,
you have
of course.
on.
And a lot of these like psychologists, etc. You know, besides the fact that we're extremely controversial, like it's hitting me now. And there's two reasons. There's two things for this. So they do their analysis of female mating practices from a scientific academic standard, and it stops there. She wants a leader of men. She wants a man that's physically strong and capable, a man that's confident, a man that's ambitious, because these are all, you know, provider values, security values, whatever. That's it. They just tell you what it is, right? Like you said before, they don't interpret the data for you. Now, I think the reason why these psychologists and these, like, you know, clean cut intersexual dynamic creators like a Chris Williamson, a Jordan Peterson, etc. The reason why they don't want to actually take that data and interpret it is because you're going to come to the fucking conclusion. A lot of these girls are that's why. And they don't want to have these difficult conversations about what it takes to actually be an attractive man. They'll sit there and say, have dark triad traits, right? No, you fucking, you don't call her back. You have multiple women. You go to the fucking club and you make sure you have girls which you have social proof. You make these girls fucking compete for you. You make sure that you go to the gym. You keep your sexual market value high. You groom yourself well. You put yourself first every single time. You never let her pick where you're going to go on dates. You never let her tell you anything and boss you around. See, they don't want to hear this shit. They don't want to have these very difficult and sensitive conversations because
anything that's unflattering to female nature is forbidden.
These guys are over here nerding out on stats and numbers and women this and women that and they're keeping it clean. That's how they're able to make, because women love psychology. That's why they dominate the psychology board. But they don't like how to deal with their psychology. And guys like me and you are out here telling guys what it is.
That's why the self-help section of every Barnes and Noble is nothing but female authors and is entirely geared for like rebuild your life, girl.
Because if you tell men what it really takes to get women, right, to really be attractive, to be arousing,
start in the gym,
it's fucked up. Because what it reveals is that are far more shallow than they want to admit. They're okay with sharing you. They're okay with breaking the rules for certain guys versus making rules for other guys. It paints them in a very bad light. That's like why like guys like me come around, or guys like you, and we say what the fuck it is. Misogynist.
Yes.
No, I just understand your nature. And I know how you are.
I took your data points, connected these dots, and now I'm a misogynist because I connected the dots that you didn't want to, because if you had done that, you would lose half of your audience.
Right? Like somebody asked Jordan Peterson, right? Because I went to one of his seminars before, like, oh, like, how do I get the girl, blah, blah, blah. And he's giving like pussified advice.
Negotiate with her at the table.
Like stupid shit, like, oh, well, you know, it's safe to say that if she rejects you, that she doesn't want to go ahead and kill your biological thing, you know, and you're the problem. And it's like, and the reason why they do that is because at the end of the day, these people are still fucking academics. And the reality is this data that you have, it's fucking useless unless you can interpret it. So what we basically do is this is our job. We take that fucking jargon, right? And we interpret, look at it, blah, blah, blah. Cool. Take out the garbage, keep the good stuff that makes sense. Go to the audience. This is what you fucking do. And we tell them step by step, this is what you do. We looked at this boring ass data for you motherfuckers, and we're telling you A to Z what to do. Because the problem with these fucking academics is they're not going to give you real solutions to deal with, most importantly, modern women.
And the minute you do is the minute they'll say, you're corrupting our data.
Yeah,
you're misinterpreting us. You're telling. I was like, no, I'm taking the same data points that you have. I'm just interpreting it in a way that you're unwilling to go to. So, for example,
give me these academics. Let's go to Marquee right fucking now. Not one of them will get a fucking number. They have all this stuff. They're over here studying rats and shit. They know all this shit about female nature. Okay, motherfuckers. You come with us to the club. Let's see how many numbers you can get, etc. You got all this clout too. Like, let's see what you can do. And that's the difference. They don't have the real world fucking application on any of this shit because they know the science, but they don't know the real science, because now you have to actually take this stuff and apply it. And that's where they fail. Because when I went to Peterson's things and when he gives dating advice, it's generic and it doesn't fucking work. If anything, he interpreted his own data incorrectly for 2024.
Well, I'll go. So, for instance, I'll do this. I'll pick up, say, I think it was either Rob Henderson or it might have been Rolf Dengen. But I'll get these studies. I will say, women prefer guys with dark triad personality traits, right? Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy in varying degrees, right? Then, so they'll say, well, this is what women find attractive. This is what they're aroused by. These guys who have these personality traits, high correlation between them and sexual access. Okay, so that's their data. That is your fucking data.
Their shit. Yep.
Me going, okay.
They love to use
I
that.
Understand
Dark
that.
triad traits. That's what they love to use.
So then I go and I say, well, you know, the guy in Tinder Swindler had some really dark triad personality traits. And look what happened as a result. These girls find him irresistible. And, you know, he was able to get away with all this. He was a swindler. He was a Tinder swindler, right? And these women couldn't get enough of this guy. In fact, we couldn't even get enough of watching the damn thing, right? And so if I go and I say, well, the Tinder swindler, that guy was an archetype for these dark triad personality traits, I make that connection. That shows not the swindler as being abusive, but the woman as being sort of manipulated by her own fucking nature, right? And so if I say it's women's nature to love the bad boy, it's women's nature to love the narcissist, the psychopath, and the Machiavellian guy, and in varying combinations, and they find that guy irresistible. Like they want to have his babies, they want to fuck this guy, whether it's evolution or whatever. You know, I'm not making an ethical or a moral observation. I'm not even giving you best practices in this. I'm making one observation based on your data, and here's an example of your data in the real world. No, you guys are fucking toxically masculine, manipulative sons
You're
of bitches.
bastardizing my data.
You're bastardizing my data. And I'm like, no. And you know why? Because those connections that I just made shine a pretty dark light on females' nature.
Not only that, right? Look, these guys want to be as big as possible.
I'm not even trying to make women look bad. I'm just, if anything else, I'm like saying, this is part of your nature. At least accept it and use that information so that when the next Tinder swindler comes around, you go, wait a minute.
But here's the thing, though. This
I remember what Rollo said.
This is the thing with women, though, that I've noticed that like men don't suffer from this shit. If I talk about the dark side of male nature and the issues with male nature, guys are going to look at me crazy. Yeah. Like if I say guys are horn dogs and they want to fuck girls.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You're wonderful, Myra.
You can go ahead and talk about the dark side of male nature all fucking day. No one gives a shit. No guy's going to check you on it. No one. Yeah, you're right. There are fucking weirdos and losers, etc. But if I talk about the dark side of female nature, you're a misogynist. And here's the thing with these academics, and that like this is all starting to connect now. Like the problem with these academics is they need to still retain their female audience. And a lot of these guys are fucking psychiatrists, psychologists, etc., and they still want to be a part of the board. They don't want to get fucking kicked off. So what do? They stop at the academics. They don't go into application. They don't talk about any of this shit. They just say, this is what my study finds. And they don't go into any of the real prescriptions of what to do, because then they're going to be labeled a misogynist. Then they're going to look, Jordan Peterson barely passed the academic part and they wanted to take him off the board. So the problem now is that the psychology board, psychiatrists, whatever the fuck it is dominated by females. And women have a very difficult time with hearing the dark side of their own fucking nature. They don't like it.
Which is why they will steer research and experimentation away from anything, any kind of data that might imply that or in some way like back that up. It's
the pickup artists that really have the best, like you said before, in 15 years of pickup artistry has blown away the fucking psychology. Because here's the thing that these psychologists don't want to fucking admit. You fucking learn from the pickup artists that you're scared to fucking emulate.
Yeah. Or that's even have reality on your fucking show.
Yeah.
Or have on your show. Yeah. To even talk about the other thing, I've always said this too, is like you take a guy who's like a psychologist, right? He's got his doctorate. Think about what that takes. You've got to go to like 8 years of school to do that. You've got to do your doctoral thesis. I don't know how much money is involved in like getting that education in the first place. Okay. Let's just say for sake of argument, you've got like student loans for that. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of investment, right? So you've got that. So you've got to go to you got to dedicate 8 years of your life to get that doctorate. You've got to go, and then you've got to pay for it with your student loans. Then you get out. Then what do you got to do? You're going to go and be a clinical psychologist, and you got to get a practice. Then you're going to have to go and get your certification. You're going to have to go and get your insurance, your malpractice insurance. You're going to have to pay for a practice. You're going to have to go buy a place to do it. So you're going to have a secretary, all this other shit. You look at the capital investment for one male or female individual to become a clinical psychologist, a doctor of clinical psychology. And you look at all the investment that goes into that, you're probably looking at about 10 years and a lot of fucking money. And you know what then happens? You go on to Twitter and you see John from MLD in a fucking bubble bath going, fuck all you guys. And he's got a bigger following than you. And then the last 4 years or 5 years that you've been fucking around in college, He's been making money hand over fist, talking to the same people that you would be your patients, that you would want them to, hey, I'm going to help these guys kind of thing. You get into that niche. Didn't matter because all you had to do was go and create your own Kajabi course, or you just got to be a good, you know, interesting, entertaining individual, and you would have been able to have been more effective doing what John or me or anybody else has been doing for God knows how long. And meanwhile, now knowing that, and coming into Instagram, coming onto Twitter, coming onto YouTube and everything, I would say that would piss me off if I had put 10 years of my life doing the right thing.
I think me and you are both coming to this. I mean, you probably knew this already, but for me, I'm like kind of like thinking in my head, I'm connecting dots in my head. This is why the academics don't want to fucking talk to us, bro. They
resent us. That's why. Because we go where they won't go.
Yeah.
They can't or they won't.
We will take their data and interpret it correctly and dispense what guys really need, because they don't care about all this jargon shit like, oh, blah, 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 you know, like, no, they just want, dude, what the fuck do I do? This is what you do. And what we're telling you is going to work because we have the real data and we're giving you advice. We're translating it into fucking English for the regular guy.
And even when they'll say, well, you got it wrong. You got the data wrong. I'll tell you the thing is, but we connected dots and we ask questions. And we ask the right questions. We ask questions that you, even if those are the wrong questions, we ask questions that you're unwilling to ask. And you won't go there. And because you won't go there, you will never be as effective as the people in the red pill.
Never. You never will be. No. And the other thing too, academics in general is cocked. It's run by now. Academia, especially higher education,
they're not going
finito.
There. They won't go there. They have no interest to go there.
Like the psychology board, finito there too. So you can see why these guys are fucking scared to have conversations with us or anything, because, and then also for the guys that have a YouTube following, a lot of these guys, women love psychology. A lot of these guys have like maybe 50%. Now it makes sense why he might be scared. A lot of these guys have like half their viewership is female. So if you go ahead and you talk about this, you know, stuff that's unflattering to female nature, it's going to put a lot of them off and piss them off because women don't handle the truth well. And you know, and I think, you know, until recently, right? If you talked about this shit, like, you know, no one was talking negatively. Like even like pickup artists, like they were still like somewhat nice about female nature. They will tell you like what you need to do or whatever. But like now we don't give a fuck. I tell girls that I say that they're like, you know, or like you gotta like, you know, I look at men, I tell men all the time. One of the things I tell them is like, you gotta, right? Because so many guys they're so used to pedestalizing women that have to almost make it stupid proof for them. So I have to tell them, you're the fucking prize.
Even when you go over the top and you use language like that, it's necessary. Because if you don't, they don't hear it.
They don't hear it.
It's like, I've said this before.
It's like not enough to say, don't pedestalize. You got to say, you're the superior. That sticks.
When you go to the casino that you're at right now, you're walking to the floor, right? What do you see? You see nothing but like video poker machines and video slot machines and everything. Wheel of Fortune, Buffalo, all this stuff is like, it's just sensory overload, right?
Yep.
That is social media right now. That is YouTube, right? And so the only thing, because I come from a marketing background, because I used to work for casinos. I was an art director.
Alcohol
as well. But when you're on the casino floor, there is no room for subtlety. You have to if you want to stand out, you have to have tits. It has to be on fire and it has to be red, and preferably red flaming tits. That is what will get attention on a floor, on a casino floor, right? Yeah. The same thing applies to YouTube. The same thing applies to Instagram, to Twitter as well. And sometimes you got to say this. She's just being. That's red flaming tits in social media right there. If you say something that's over the top like that, people will remember that. And the reason why they will is because they've been so overloaded by sensory overload by being on social media and become so desensitized to shit. It takes your to get people's attention, not because you're trying to be an asshole. You're just trying to grab attention and say, this is important enough that you need red flaming tits in front of your face. Otherwise you're never going to see this in this morass of,
and that's what kind of sucks,
sound and light.
To get the attention that's required to change men's minds and like deprogram them from the stupidity, you have to risk being so offensive that people won't platform you. Because like, you're not an academic now. Like we've went into a realm. I think you could still swing it with them, but like me, I am not an academic whatsoever. I'm a fucking guy that literally just, you know, tells guys what it is, what it takes to be attractive. And I've dealt with a lot of girls. Like my late count's like 500 something. Like it is what, like, I know what the fuck I'm talking about. Like you put me in a room with these like academics, right, with a bunch of girls there, I'm gonna run circles around them because not only do I have their data points and know them, Now I know how to actually interpret it and use it.
Best practices
in
that they'll never
a modernized sexual marketplace where women have 100% sexual autonomy and they have more options than ever before. And it's an ever-changing marketplace. Now you add in technology to it. You add in the ability for her to go ahead and change. These motherfuckers don't know what they're talking about.
You know why? Because they're specified. They're specified in one area.